What would it feel like to be free? Do you constantly try and make changes in your life but always slip back into old ways? I used to be constantly frustrated by my lack of willpower. What I never knew is that there was a reason why I could not control myself, and that there are processes that you can follow to regain your freedom. I interview some of the most knowledgeable and compassionate minds talking about breaking all varieties of bad habits and how to actually live a joyful and fulfilling life. Listen to the show and hit subscribe to free yourself from the shackles of the mind. And if you find some benefit, please share it with a friend and let's make the world a better place together.
So today we're looking at the power of communication. And I'll just do a disclaimer because last time I did this workshop, someone came in and said, "What are you communicating with?" And I'm pretty sure that he was hoping it was aliens or something. And sorry to disappoint anyone if they thought that that was what the workshop was all about. It's very practical stuff today. We're going to be talking about the really nuts and bolts of communication and how communication is the one thing that can radically make your entire life, not the one thing, but one of the main things that we can do to radically improve our life across the board. Most of our life is spent actually communicating with people. You think about what your day looks like for the average person. You might go into the supermarket in the morning, you have a conversation with someone, you see a friend, you see a colleague, you speak to your partner. Most of your life is actually spent in interaction with people. One of the things I've noticed in my work with I'm a drug and alcohol counsellor, and I work with addicts in a residential rehab. One of the things that I have noticed with addicts, you think about the situation of an addict. It's someone who's in their life, they have become completely disconnected from, normality in every way. They are unable to function in their life. They spend all their resources and they get into this state where they're so unbelievably unhappy that the only thing that they know how to do is to use substances, drugs or alcohol to try and give themselves a bit of relief to make themselves feel a bit better. And one of the things that I've noticed with addicts is that they've in a situation where they've become unable to communicate with the people around them. Maybe they went through something very painful and they weren't able to communicate that from a young age, or they're now unable to, without the aid of drugs or alcohol, to actually feel like they're connected to other people. And communication is a bridge that actually allows us to actually experience that connection step by step. So that's what we're looking at today. What's the most important part of communication?
Listening.
Listening, absolutely. Because before we're able to communicate in any way, shape or form, we really need to try and understand the other person. So if we're not able to listen, then we're not going to be able to understand. So listening is the key to all effective communication. Without the ability to listen effectively, messages are easily misunderstood. As a result, communication breaks down and the sender and the receiver of those messages both become frustrated or irritated. Listening means paying attention not only to the words, but to how it is told, the use of language and voice, and how the other person uses his or her body. In other words, it means being aware of both verbal and non-verbal messages. On average, 1/4 of our waking time is spent in listening. Effective listening is the most crucial skill for becoming successful in anything. Why do you think people don't listen?
Because they think about the answer.
They'll think about the answer?
Yeah, or a fix or something, how they can help without actually listening.
Yeah, sure. So people are listening to try and fix that person's problem. Very common. Amongst males, probably a little bit worse. But
I would say because they're clouded by their own thoughts and feelings and what's going on for them.
100%. That's such a big barrier to listening. One thing that I deal with a lot of people with social anxiety, and it's actually something that I used to suffer with chronically. I just couldn't start a conversation with a stranger. If I went into a party, I'd just be the person that'd sit in the corner of the room, just kind of like, what am I meant to do with myself in this situation? How do I connect with these people? And in that situation, I would pretty much be thinking, before I've even entered the room, I'm thinking, oh my God, I've got to go talk to someone. I'm going to look stupid. What am I going to say? How do I do this? What they're going to think about me? Have I worn the right clothes today? On and on and on. I'd be thinking about these things. So I would actually be blocking myself from connecting with the other person because I'd be so much stuck in my own stuff, my own thoughts, my own fears, that I wouldn't be able to have that connection with anybody. So absolutely. I'll talk a little bit more about that later on because it's a very important point. Any other ideas?
Judgment.
Judgment, yeah. So fear of judgment is a huge barrier to communication. So maybe a lack of interest in what somebody else is saying. Who doesn't like small talk? Oh, there's a lot of hands there. Small talk, something that's very, very monotonous for many, many people. Small talk is something that is incredibly important for building a connection. If you feel disconnected, isolated, struggling, like you feel like it's difficult to start conversations, small talk is an amazing tool. Because at the end of the day, who struggles with trust? Does anyone have some difficulties trusting people? Some people just go for it. They're just like, I'll trust anyone with anything. I'll just go for it. And see whatever happens, it's fine. Many people have been hurt and they struggle to trust. Small talk is a wonderful opportunity to help people to build trust, where they get to kind of like size you up. Is this person safe? And I found learning to do small talk, I hated it. I just couldn't. My parents owned a petrol station, and I used to sit at a desk next to the cashier. So every day they've got a flow of people coming in like, isn't it a nice day? Like, wonderful. 10 minutes later, bloody miserable day, innit? Yeah, miserable, yeah. And I just hear, and the cashier would just go along with whatever they want. They would just get into it. And I just couldn't believe, I just hated it. I could not deal with this. But being a backpacker, maybe that helped me when I first came to this country. And it's kind of like, everyone's like, oh, where are you from? How long have you been here? You know, everybody's been through these conversations. Actually learning to do this, having some really mundane questions, I found was a really great way to get over that situation where I'd be super anxious and unable to make connections with people, by being prepared to have some conversations that I might have not have found that interesting. And another thing that I found super helpful is someone told me, if you ask somebody questions about themselves, one after another, mundane as they might be, they will come away from that conversation thinking, what a nice person. It's pretty easy to do that. You just ask people questions about themselves. Turns out people like talking about themselves in general. Not everybody, but yeah, you can use that in a manipulative way and it might not be so healthy. However, to actually make those connections, to actually become more interested in the person, can you hear how being interested in that other person would get you out of your own head? And how you might get stuck in your own head thinking, what about me? As soon as you get out of your own head and actually start thinking about what about that other person, it makes you curious. And it actually breaks down the barriers of social isolation. So yeah, lack of interest, getting distracted. Who gets distracted a lot? Yeah, fair bit of that going on these days. It's very hard not to get overstimulated by things these days. I think you guys have probably got a lot of awareness of, you know, what the effect that mobile phones, the buzzes, the dings, the screens, all the stuff that is distracting us so badly. It's very hard to listen when we've got all the things from work, high pressure jobs and all the things going on. It becomes quite hard to listen to people. Yeah, too caught up in our own problems, feeling defensive. If somebody gives us some critical feedback, it's natural to feel defensive sometimes. Does anyone get that? When someone just has a poke at you and you just go, no, get fuck off, and all that stuff. Does anyone get a bit of that? Okay, yeah, me too. So yeah, feeling defensive is a big barrier to communication. And simply not caring. So this means we become disconnected from those around us. To listen better, management of stress is extremely important. Emotions such as sadness, anger are a big barrier to good communication. When someone doesn't listen with full attention, the speaker can feel misunderstood, disregarded and frustrated. Real listening helps a person to understand, but can also comfort someone. I remember when my best friend committed suicide when I was 23 years old. And I remember he had this, his brother, he actually found him, and obviously that's a terrible thing to go through. And I remember he had this friend, he was a really, really nice guy, and he was just with him for weeks, actually. He just used to hang around with him. He never said anything. He just almost said no words. And I remember how beneficial that was to my friend at the time, and he even said just like having him there was just so important to me, because he just listened. He didn't know, in that situation, there's very little that you can say to someone. They're just in shock. They're totally overwhelmed. And just from this friend that we had, being around there was so important to him. How much of communication do you think is actually words?
10% maybe?
How much, sorry, 10? 10? Close? 50? 20? 7? It is actually, it's exactly 7. This is according to research. How they figure this out, I don't know. I'm sure it's extremely complicated to try and figure out how much it is. But they're estimating that around 7% of communication is actually words. They're saying 38% is tone. So you can just imagine, they say, I'm really happy with you. I'm so happy. Can you hear me how happy I am? Doesn't sound that happy, does it? I'm so angry. I'm just unbelievably angry right now. I just cannot. I can't believe it. Convincing? That's passive-aggressive. Yes, very passive-aggressive. And they're saying 50% is body language. 55%, sorry. So body language, even if you use words and you're trying to say things, people can generally tell if you're actually full of shit. Yeah? Because our body language and our tone, our eye contact, all these different parts of our body, people can actually see what we're saying without them actually needing to listen to the words. So, what would you assume, if I had a posture like this, how am I feeling, would you imagine? Relaxed, lazy, I get that a lot. I definitely don't feel like that. Perceptive, receptive. Okay, so how about if I had this posture? Non-invested. Shy. Anxious. Closed off. We're getting there. Angry. How about if I'm doing this? Interested. Arrogant. You guys know me well. Impatient? Yeah, it could be. Oh, that's the finger tapping. That one meant to be happening. I didn't know that. I was unaware. How about this? Disinterested. Festival life. Yeah? So body language, it's saying a lot. How about hand gestures? Hands are really interesting. What does that mean? Thank you. Oh, no, thank you. Oh, yeah, no, thank you. Open or honest? Absolutely. The hands are a really, really, really big deal. Because that's absolutely non-threatening, open, friendly body language. One of my friends used to tell me she used to suffer with really bad anger. And she didn't know it until it got too late. And she said the thing that actually helped her to know if she was getting angry is she would feel her hands had just gone like that. She said she'd go up on her little tippy toes as well, like that. And she's really short. And she'd do that, and she'd grip like that. And she's just like, but she knew if she started to grip her hands like that, she started becoming really angry. And she knew the first thing that she had to do was start to open her hands again. And that actually had a really big psychological impact on her. By opening her hands again would help her to start to calm down. Pointing. How does that feel? Aggressive. It's hard to blend in, and like in a crowd you can just kind of hide, can't you? As soon as someone points, it's like someone's put a spotlight on you. It feels quite exposing, doesn't it, and quite aggressive. Fidgeting, that's pretty obvious, isn't it? I don't know if it's ADHD or maybe they're just a little bit agitated. And we talked about clenched fists. Eye contact, consistent eye contact, another really interesting one. Consistent eye contact indicates confidence and attentiveness, but can feel intense if overdone. On average, someone would maintain around 5 seconds of eye contact and then look away. And if somebody keeps staring into your eyes and doesn't let that gaze go, generally they want something, or they're trying to get in your head. Have you ever noticed when someone just doesn't let off any eye contact and they're kind of just like gazing straight into their... I know it happens a lot here. It might be a controversial subject at this festival. But generally, it's a tactic that people who are manipulative, they will use their eye contact to just try and get inside your head. So that's something really interesting. Avoiding eye contact may suggest discomfort, guilt, or a lack of confidence. Blinking rapidly, nervous. Eye rolls, that's a really fun one, isn't it? Squinting, skeptical, or concentrating. Legs are a really interesting one with body language. What do legs mean? Crossing's defensive, is it? I always used to feel really embarrassed. I find it really comfortable to sit like that, but I thought it was like a not very manly thing to do. Do I look manly? I always thought that. I find it really uncomfortable. I don't really like sitting like that. Anyway. But what does it mean? What does legs, like pointing of like direction of legs?
I've heard your legs or your knees point to whoever you're like interested in, listening to.
100%. So this is really interesting because it's actually quite, people can generally, with body language, if they're trying to like put on an act or put on a show, they can usually like, they focus on their face and what their face is doing, they focus on their arms, but the legs, it's the hardest part to get to actually lie and be dishonest about something. And if people become disinterested, they generally start to point their legs towards the door. That's funny, eh? It's like you pay attention. It's really weird. It's true. If people are interested, they point their legs towards them, and if they start to become interested, they start to point their legs away. Like, I'm kind of ready to go now. Ready to go. Interesting. So other body language, facial expressions, head movements, proximity, personal space. Everyone's had someone get in their personal space and you're like, a bit close there, I can smell your breath, a bit too close, haven't brushed your teeth today. Touch as well, all these things are ways that we can communicate with people. There's 4 main communication styles that I teach in rehab. Does anyone know about these 4 communication styles? Any ideas? Different styles that we communicate with. I'm sure there's more than 4, but this is a classic example. Yes? Verbal, kinesthetic. So it's true, they're definitely communication styles. Sorry, I can't hear over there. Storyteller, yep. I'm looking for something specific, I'm scratching here.
Visual.
Visual, yep. All communication styles. Assertive, there we go. So the four main ways of communicating that we look at generally gets put into the 4 categories. So assertive communication, is that good? So that's good. And that when we're talking about it in this context, we're talking about something very specific and we're going to be looking at that. So if assertive communication is something that's healthy, there's 3 other types of communication. Aggressive, so anger. Direct. Passive. So passive is, sitting back, not doing anything about it. And you probably have said the other one, passive aggressive. So passive communication, passive aggressive, aggressive and assertive. So we're going to be looking at all these different types of communication and how they play out in our everyday life. So if we're looking at, you have the fight, flight, freeze. So when you become defensive or fearful of something that you're not going to get something or the outcome is going to go badly, generally people go into one of those different states. So either fight, what would that be out of our communication styles? Fight would be aggressive. Sorry? Sorry, I didn't hear. Defeative. Oh, the defeative. Right, okay. Defensive. I'm so sorry. Oh my God, I'm a bit deaf. So defensive, 100%. So aggressive. Yep. So that's the fight. Freeze. Freeze would be passive. We're not going to do anything about it. Flee. Run away. So passive aggressive. So why is passive aggressive running away? Does anyone know anything about passive aggressive communication?
No, I don't understand.
So it's a super interesting thing, and it's actually out of all of these things, I think learning about what's passive aggressive and what's assertive are really important because they're the ones that probably are a little bit more elusive. Anger's pretty obvious. Not doing anything about it's pretty obvious, but these other 2, they're super interesting. So we're going to have a look at those. So passive communication. This is avoiding confrontation. Anybody avoid confrontation? Find that quite hard to deal with? Anybody good at dealing with confrontation? No hands? Oh, we've got a couple of people here. So if we have any problems, we'll go to these guys. So passive aggressive, avoiding confrontation. This is you don't stand up for your values. You people pleasing. So do you guys understand the concept of people pleasing? Does anyone want to have a go at that?
Saying yes when you mean no.
Absolutely, 100%. Saying yes when you mean no. You need to say no. You don't have enough time to do something. Someone says, "Oh, can you help me with this?" "Oh, yeah, absolutely." But actually, you know that it's going to totally send you out of whack. You have something important to do that's more important, and this maybe isn't important, but you're going to go and just say yes anyway. Why do you think people might do that? Okay.
It feels like you're selling your soul, giving yourself away, dismissing yourself in every possible way.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about... Would you like to share your example? Yeah.
Loose boundaries.
Loose boundaries. Yes, definitely. No boundaries. We say no when we need to say yes. We say yes when we need to say no. The example was like me as a 13-year-old teenager, and say they start getting offered Class A drugs. I don't want to do it. I'm terrified of it, but I'm so worried about doing that and my friends rejecting me that I just lose all my values. I lose everything I know is going to be good for me, and I just say yes, so they're going to like me still. That's literally what happened to me. Terrible boundaries because of the fear that I'm not going to be liked for something. The thing with people pleasing, the problem with it, is that it's all about fear. It's not actually about wanting someone else to be pleased. It's more about not wanting to deal with the consequences of standing up for something that we believe in. So it does feel like selling your soul, so to speak. It's like you're giving up your values, you're giving up what you believe in. When you do this, how does it feel? Shit, yeah. You don't know later, so you have bad consequences. Long-term consequences are bad. Yeah. Yeah. Any others? Undervalued. You can feel undervalued. So this is the thing, right? We do this, we engage in this people-pleasing behaviour because we want an outcome from the situation. It might be we want to feel appreciated, so we do something nice, going, I'm going to do this nice thing for this person, and then I hope that they notice and say, "Well done, good for you. I really appreciate you. I respect you. I love you. I'm so grateful for you." All these things. Or it might be a situation where we have something that's really, really irritating us in our, that's grinding, it's against our values, and they keep doing it, and we keep going along with it, and then we just get, the resentment starts to build. And we feel it feels extremely frustrating from being passive and not dealing with anything and just going along with whatever the social forces are around us, family force sometimes, societal, whatever. Just going along with these things, eventually we're going to end up losing our self completely. We lose our values, and then we just end up in a situation that we'll wonder, how on earth did I end up here? How did I get here in my life? So passive is really, I really know I should do something different to this, but we just go along with something and we end up getting actually really angry. And we can end up, usually a passive person, eventually they'll kind of have an explosion, because they bottle their emotions, and then pop all over the place, People it's anger everywhere. So actually this resentment builds. So it's not really about the other person. It's not really about caring for the other person. It's about us trying to feel good in the situation, avoiding the conflict, trying to make people happy, lose ourselves, and then eventually it comes out with an explosion of anger. So that's just passive, not passive-aggressive. Passive communicators will often fail to assert themselves, allow others to intentionally or unintentionally infringe on their boundaries, fail to express their needs, exhibit poor eye contact and slumped body posture. The impact of passive communication is they'll often feel anxious because life feels outside of their control, often feel depressed, stuck and hopeless, and often feel resentful, but be unaware of it. They're unable to mature because real issues are never actually addressed. These people may feel like a doormat and a victim and blame others. So, aggressive communication. Aggressive communication is a style in which individuals express their feelings and opinions and advocate for their needs in a way that violates the boundaries of others. Aggressive communicators are verbally and or physically abusive. Just think about that in a second. Has anyone identified times when they've been an aggressive communicator? Yeah, we've all done it, I think, at times, most of us, unless we have any saints in our present. Are you aware in that moment that you're actually violating another person's boundaries? Probably don't think about it in the moment, do you? But when we're angry, we're actually really encroaching on somebody else. Aggressive communicators will often try to control others, use humiliation to control others, criticize, blame or attack others, be very impulsive, have low frustration tolerance, speak in a loud, demanding and overbearing voice, and have an overbearing posture. They'll act threateningly or rudely. They won't listen well. They interrupt frequently, and they use you statements such as, "You always do that wrong. You are so annoying. I would be okay if you didn't, da 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 da." The impact of a pattern of aggressive communication is that these individuals become alienated from others and push people away. They generate fear and hatred in others. They always blame others instead of owning their issues, and thus are unable to mature. The aggressive communicator will say, believe or behave like, believe they are superior and right, and that others are always wrong. This is something I find, like, when you're angry. Has anyone had a thing where they've, like, felt super angry and you want to do something about it, but you don't, because you know it's going to be really bad, and you know you're right, you are right. I am right, I know it. I'm absolutely 100% sure it's not my fault, I'm right. They're the problem. It's because they did that thing. I am so angry because they did that, and I deserve to be angry. And then 2 days later, oh, I'm an idiot. Actually, I did. That was my fault, wasn't it? Sorry about that. I nearly punched you in the face. Please, I didn't do that. Anyone had that? It is always a good idea not to act on anger, because it does feel like you're right when you're like that. You know, you feel so entitled and right. But if you actually calm down, take a step back, get some perspective, have a breather. Maybe you need a month to deal with this. Maybe you can't let it go for a month. But just wait until you can look at it, with a clear perspective. So, aggressive communicator, they'll be loud, bossy and pushy, be intimidating, try to get their own way no matter what, believe their problems are caused by other people, and react to things instantly. So now, my favourite, passive-aggressive. It shouldn't be my favourite, but it's so interesting. This is a style in which individuals appear passive on the surface, but really they're acting out of anger in a subtle, indirect or behind-the-scenes way. People who develop a pattern of passive-aggressive communication usually feel powerless, stuck and resentful. In other words, they're incapable of dealing directly with the subject of their resentments. Instead, they express their anger by subtly undermining the subject of their real or imagined resentments. Interesting. Passive-aggressive communicators will often have difficulty acknowledging their anger. They use facial expressions that do not match how they feel, i.e. they smile when they feel angry. They use sarcasm, deny that there's a problem, appear cooperative while purposely doing things covertly to annoy or disrupt someone, and use subtle sabotage to get even. Can anyone think any examples of this? There's so many fun examples. Gaslighting. So making someone think that they're crazy. Basically, it could be an example. As a drug addict, I'm extremely good at this, so I have lots of practice. Are you on drugs? No. What's that white powder on your face? Toothpaste. Wasn't there $200 in my drawer? No, there was only $100. How do you know that? I just counted it for you to check. Very good. Make people think that they're crazy. Easy when it's your mum because she wants to believe you. She doesn't want to believe you're a drug addict. Easy work. But there's many, many ways that people do this in really, really cruel ways. You know, when people actually do really bad behaviour, happens in relationships a lot, and then they say, I'm not doing that, you're crazy. So it's a really nasty form of passive-aggressive communication. Any other ideas of ways that we can be passive-aggressive? Backstabbing, yeah. Silent treatment's a wonderful example. Defamation, yeah. Silent treatment's a really great example because it kind of doesn't seem like it's that cruel, but actually it can be really a way that it can really hurt someone by doing that, yeah. Sarcasm, yeah. I really like sarcasm. I feel like it takes a bit of a hit, but it probably depends how you're using it. Yeah. Sabotaging someone. Sorry? What? Sabotaging someone. So someone could be trying to get a promotion at work, and you keep telling them, yeah, great work, you really deserve it. Yeah, good one. Yeah, I think you're the perfect person for this job. And then to the boss, you're like, yeah, did you know that they've done this and this wrong, and da-da-da-da, and actually you're trying to get the promotion. But you're really like, yeah, I'm on your team, you're going to get it. Whilst behind your back, I'm just trying to dismantle you and do things. I had a friend, I'm not going to name him. It's really strange. Psychology is very interesting. States of consciousness are very interesting. I had this friend, and we didn't know much about him, but he was from where I was from when we was living in Australia, and he had nowhere to live. And my wonderful friend was very kind, and he let me stay there when I'd basically made myself homeless from really bad choices. And this other friend, he decided to let him stay on our sofa. And the person who was our host, he was very particular about how he liked his house and his things, very, very particular. And my other friend, I'm trying not to say his name, my other friend, he realised that he gets really annoyed by small things, doesn't he? So he just started doing these really odd things, like he would take his salt and his pepper, and he would swap it. And he would just, like, stuff like this, like, and he would just do these tiny little things over the course of probably a couple of months, and eventually he just snapped. And he kicked us both out, because he had enough. And this was, like, the perfect example of passive-aggressive behaviour, why he did this. To be honest, it was pretty evil. But he probably thought it was hilarious. But actually, that's actually, like, and he never told him he was doing this. But it was just doing his thing to just slowly wind him up progressively over time to someone that was being kind to him. Anyway, that's just always an example that springs to mind of this passive-aggressive behaviour, whilst smiling to him and pretending to be his friend. So, strange why someone would try and hurt people that are being so kind to them. Yeah, I never found out. I'm still very interested. Yeah, so door slamming, breaking plates, more obvious, less sneaky stuff, but there's many examples of this. Yeah.
Sometimes, I do that at home, but I do because when I'm hurt, I keep everything to myself. I don't want to hurt others, people around me, not to project, so that I don't project my anger or my hurt to others. So that's my kind of silent treatment. Is it a bad way of bad or not good?
So it's not bad. It depends, doesn't it? Because there's always motivations behind the reason why we do something. If you're not able to speak because you're not yet ready to speak, like we spoke about earlier, is like if you're going to explode with anger, maybe just wait. And you wait. But the trick is going to be to start trying to communicate something about that. I'm sorry, I really can't talk to you at the moment. This might take me a day or two, but I just need a bit of space. I am not doing this to hurt you, but I will try and deal with this, and I will speak to you soon.
Yeah, I'm not good at that.
Yeah.
Even just to communicate what I am feeling and to have that space.
Yeah. So it's not bad because if you're not yet ready to respond in a way that's healthy, or you don't yet understand, that's not a bad thing. But it's about in that time, if you might have 24 hours, 72 hours where you are unable to do that, if you've said something like, look, I can't deal with this yet, but I will get to it soon, and I don't hate you, you know. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to add to that. I think back in the days, I would use silent treatment to like don't communicate at all. But I think with relationships and partnership, if you're gonna use silent treatment because you don't want to hurt the other person, it's always healthier to communicate that. Oh, I just need to process this.
Yeah.
I'll be back in a couple of days, like you said. Yes, I agree. Like I think if you need time to yourself, you still need to like let the person know, because then if you just go silent, then the person is just, they're gonna just be rippling with like anxiety, and like they'll just make themselves go nuts thinking, oh, why did the person just stop talking to me?
Yeah.
But yeah.
And that's having that awareness of them as well. It's like I'm in pain right now. I'm really struggling. But also being aware of the impact of the other person, because quite often when we're not doing okay, the other person will hold it together, trying to hold space for us, and then we're finally okay again, and you're like, all right, we can all be fine now, and then they kind of collapse because they've kind of been holding it together for you, and then you have to kind of hold it together for them. So it can be quite difficult, can't it, at times when you're trying to do that for each other. So that the more you communicate and the more that you prevent the build-up of those anxieties, insecurities in people, and all the things that we do to people by the way that we're behaving because we're struggling, if we're able to communicate some of that earlier, maybe it'll even solve the problem at the time, but across time it might not. It might help them to stay in a better space while they know what's going on for you. Yeah.
I think silent treatment, if we don't communicate, it becomes gaslighting slowly. Is it similar?
Are you trying to make them feel like they're crazy, like they're bad, like it's their fault?
No. I'm just thinking about it. Not.
I mean, gaslighting is an intentional action.
Yeah.
It's like something that you're actually doing to try and hurt someone. And if you're not doing it on purpose, it's really not so bad. But it can certainly be made a lot better and less painful. And maybe over time you learn for that to stop happening altogether if you learn to communicate earlier. So it's about doing your best, really, and being aware of the other person and the effect that we're having on them. And then maybe if you communicate to them, maybe they can actually help you with something because they actually know what the problem is. I've seen so many times people not communicate, especially my work. They don't say something, and then they get in trouble for something that they've done. And actually it's like, if you'd had that conversation, there was a solution to that problem, but you just didn't say anything, and now you've done something to try and like get what you wanted, but you already had what you wanted, you just didn't say it, and now you've done something you shouldn't have done. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I understand.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's completely.
I'm just thinking
Thank
of a
you.
specific situation that probably might not make sense to you, but through communication, there's often a solution faster. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. So this is the worst form of communication is passive-aggressive for sure. Here's some examples. It's the silent treatment, backhanded compliments like, oh, you've done well for someone who has no brain. I get that one a lot. I found out there's people that are actually born with no brain. Did you know that? There's this special treatment, a special condition where the brain cavity fills with spinal fluid, and you just end up with this tiny little bit of film pressed to the side of the skull. And some of these people can still like go to school and get grades and stuff. And I think I'm probably one of those. Slamming doors, breaking things, being criticised by someone more dominant than you and taking it out on someone weaker. So that's a really big example. And sometimes we're not aware of this happening. So you've been at work and the boss has been just totally unreasonable to you. You've tried your best and they've just laid into you, blamed everything on you. You can't say anything because it's the boss, because he's going to sack you. You need the money to pay the rent, pay the mortgage, and you can't do anything about it. You bottled it up, gone home, then what? Explode on who? Your kids, your partner, the people that you love, the people who will tolerate you the most. Is that you take your anger from one place and then you displace it onto the people that you love. Who's guilty of that one? It happens, doesn't it? Because you're just worried that there's a big outcome. When someone's more dominant than you, you feel like you can't do anything about it. or you're too worried about doing something about it, and then that ends up going on your partner, going on your children, and then that goes on to who they know. Your kids take it to school and end up bullying at school. And so being aware of that passive aggressive, being able to have those difficult conversations, and sometimes it's unbelievably difficult in the workplace or in certain situations, but being aware of it, being aware that when we go home after work or in whatever situation it might be, that someone does something and you're like, you have made me angry. Actually, they didn't. You was already angry about feeling powerless from your situation previously and not being able to communicate and do what's in your power about that problem. Spreading rumours is a really horrible way of doing this. Withholding praise because you don't want someone to look better than you. Subtle sabotage, e.g. cleaning up, but purposefully hiding things so that they can't be found. Basically, trying to hurt someone without them knowing it was you, or taking it out on someone else or something. So we're just going to do a quick segue to defense mechanisms here. They're a huge barrier to healthy communication. So have you noticed that these three communication styles we've talked to, what links all of them? Which emotion links all of these? Fear. They're all coming from a place of fear. And when we're afraid that things aren't going to go the way that we want them to go, the way that we think's the right way, then we get fearful and we try and manipulate and try and make it happen in a different way. So when we feel like this, we have these defense mechanisms. So some of the ways that we might try to defend the way that we feel might be through denial, addiction, absolute classic. I think you have a problem. No, I don't. I'm pretty sure you do. I can stop any time. Go on then. I don't want to. Addict. Denial. And there's so many things that generally in life we don't really want to accept the realities of life, so we see it the way we want to see it, that's acceptable, so that we can feel okay in life. It's very common. Projection, blaming others for your feelings. Repression, pushing unwanted thoughts or feelings into the unconscious. So if something really bad's happened to us in life, it's very common that people will just bury it and actually forget that those things have ever happened. It's quite common with abuse that people will totally lose a period of their life where they don't remember what's happened at all. Rationalization, again with addiction, very common. Explaining away unacceptable behaviors with logic. So it's okay that I did that because that happened and it meant that it was okay. Regression, returning to an earlier stage of development. I noticed this happened with my parents. When I went back, not last Christmas, but the one before, and I hadn't seen my parents in about 5 years. And I noticed that when my dad criticised me, that I actually went back to, I responded in a way that I would have done when I was about 14. When I last lived with them. It was really interesting how that happened psychologically, and just you see some people who are might be grown adults and they get criticised by their parents and it just turns them back into a child. Has anyone ever seen that happen? It's pretty interesting and then you have to kind of catch it and go, no, I need to respond in a more mature adult way. I really need to update that one. We talked about displacement, which is redirecting emotions to a safer target that we feel less threatened by when they don't deserve it at all. And reaction formation, this is another really funny one, is quite often when we feel afraid or insecure, we actually react in the way that's the total opposite of how we feel. And I have a really funny example of this is I was probably about 14, 15 years old, and I used to go in this bicycle shop. And I went in there and had my bike fixed. And the guy that was behind the counter was, I thought he was this super cool guy. He used to do tricks on his bike and jump off the walls in town, and I thought that was super cool. And if you spent over a certain amount of money, you got these little pink sweets or candies. Is that what you call them here? Candy? Yeah. He says, do you want a packet of them pink candies? And I was like, no. I really wanted them candies, but I was too scared that I wouldn't look cool in front of the guy that I thought was cool. So yeah, quite often we'll act in a way that's the complete opposite of how we feel. Anyway, that was a little segue, something to think about. So assertive communication. What is assertive communication? What is it? That was pretty assertive, wasn't it? No. I refuse.
Tell us now.
I feel like that's a bit aggressive. I feel like that was an attack. Yes.
Maybe using I feel statements.
Okay, so I feel is a really big part of a communication, as opposed to you. No, it's not about that. It's about, okay, you did that. This is how I feel about that. So it's not attacking. Okay, so we're not. It gets away from blame and all those things that make people defensive and shut them down, so that the communication breaks down. Great example. Anything else? It's about responsibility. So assertive communication is about responsibility, taking responsibility for our own life. Yes. Any more? It's to the point. Yes. So pleases and thank yous sometimes, but it is to the point. It's please and thank yous as if that's possible. But it's, yeah, and the thing with assertive communication is it often does come across as aggressive, because someone who expresses themselves assertively is clearly stating what it is that's going on for them and what they want to happen. And for someone that's used to dealing with people pleasers who just say yes, they say no when they need to say yes and yes when they need to say no. And fundamentally, someone who's dominant can push them around and get them to do what they want. But when someone actually stands up for themselves, that actually upsets a lot of people. It says you're being aggressive. To an abusive partner, if their partner stood up to them, they would feel like that was an attack on them. You're an abuser. How dare you stand up for yourself? Look what you're doing to me. This is so unfair. And they would start to blame that person. So yeah, it's direct. It's not indirect. It is not duplistic. It's this is what I'm saying. This is what I mean. This is what I want to happen. What do you think about that? So I'll go a little bit further into that. So assertive communication. Oh, sorry.
I don't know if this is just me. I'm from Germany, and sometimes when I talk to my husband and give him instructions of how to do something or what to do next, he sometimes thinks that I should say please and thank you for every single instruction. And I feel like it's just an instruction. Like, what is the way an English-speaking person would actually do that? Like, am I wrong? Is he wrong? Is he just touchy? Am I touchy? Like, who's... I don't know.
So obviously you're coming across some cultural differences. And being from Germany, you should probably be giving the class because you're expert in assertive communication. But I actually find it really refreshing dealing with someone from Germany. Same with someone from Russia. Is they just say it. There's no they don't package it in any little package. They don't try and get what they want by saying it nicer. Pardon?
It's
the tone. Yeah.
Even if you don't say the please, but you do it gently.
So the tone is extremely important. Also, the culture is very important, though, because you'll notice that if you go to certain countries, like the ones we mentioned, they will speak directly in a really firm tone. No one gets offended. They just go, okay, all right, yes or no, and they speak back equally as assertively and firmly. People don't get upset by it, so it's really interesting, the cultural differences. So you need to be aware of those, because maybe adding a please and thank you or softening the tone would be helpful in New Zealand. In England, in many countries, it would be very helpful to do that. Yes?
That's the difference between an instruction and a request.
It depends, because sometimes something can be a request and we feel like it's an instruction. So that's why the communication's extremely important, because you can say, excuse me, sir, madam, that felt like it was a bit aggressive and like a bit an instruction, like that's how I felt about that. What did you mean by that? And maybe they'll go, oh, sorry, this is just how I speak where I'm from, and actually I meant this, and you go, okay. So it doesn't matter. The way that we're perceiving it and feeling it might not necessarily be how it was meant, so we need to actually have some patience and tolerance and explore that a little further to get to a deeper understanding. Sorry. Thank you for being patient.
Oh, good. It's a particularly funny, I guess, reflection. I'm from Russia. My partner's from Germany. And
wonderful.
And I've come across this article that defines two domains in the way people communicate on a cultural spectrum, and it's the asking culture versus the guessing culture. And it's the, like, Kiwi culture is the guessing culture. It's the talk around the subject. Don't ask for what you want. That's too much. That's too confronting. It's like, would you maybe please somehow? Wouldn't it be nice if, and all of that, as opposed to, hey, this is my truth. This is what I want. Are you okay with that? And that comes with the ability to take a no. That it's like, this is what I want. Is that okay? No. Oh, okay. That's fine. But a guessing culture is non-confrontational, and they don't like receiving a no. And it's all about a yes out of people.
And in that culture, it feels aggressive when someone is assertive. It feels aggressive. It's a fantastic point. My observation of dealing in mental health and people who are extremely sad is that the cost is not worth being part of a guessing culture. It's not worth communicating in that way because the toll is too high of the frustrations that people express from saying, if people, I've noticed when people are able to be assertive and just quite simply and plainly say, actually, this is what I'm hoping for, what do you think about that? This is how our life could be better if we were able to do that. And they might say, actually, I don't agree with you. I think it should be like that. But I understand where you're coming from. And to have that conversation, actually people can be so much happier and know where that they stand with each other. But also one of the biggest things about it is if we are unable to deal with that confrontation in our own life, we become subjugated by it, by not being able to simply say what it is that I need to say. Then you feel powerless and hopeless. And once you start feeling these emotions, this is really getting into the most dangerous spectrum of emotions that you can experience. Is once you feel powerless, you are really in a bad situation. And it's super common that people feel like that they're not able to just say or express what it is that they need to say, what's important, how they're going to stick by their values. So it's super, super important. So I think you're both very fortunate to be a part of a culture where you're able to speak directly without people getting offended easily. So I really appreciate your point there. Thank you so much.
Where an older generation, such as myself, we don't need so much of that. It's you get it done, and you get it done. I don't know.
Yeah, it does. Definitely, there's definitely.
I would disagree with that.
Oh, okay. Oh, here we go.
I would say my experience is the opposite. That actually, I feel like a lot of folks my age are beginning to be more direct, whereas like my parents' folks, it's all like, it's what the person over there said, the thing about the kind of manipulator, yes, and like. By keeping us guessing and sort of saying the thing and then by not having a direct no or not allowing a direct no, kind of like slowly trying to kind of coerce the answer they want out of. But I mean, so maybe it's again like, you know, different circles, cultural as well as different,
like, I come from corporate America where you know, and then here it's like, yeah.
So definitely different cultures. I think that this has always been a problem for some people, more than others. I think that social media and the Netflix and all these things that cause us to retreat and isolate and not get out of the house, and then we don't practice these social skills. And while we're not facing confrontation, while we're not facing fear, our fear and anxiety actually just escalates while we're just staying in isolation, and we become more and more paralyzed by that. And this is a problem for many, many, many people, which has got significantly worse recently. So for many people, this is a reality that is getting far worse. You're from corporate America. I imagine that you're wonderfully good at assertive communication. It's probably a place where you need to use that and wouldn't survive without it. But still, people don't express their vulnerabilities in corporate situations. It's common that people are just too worried to, you know, say no to the boss because they want you to do something to get the promotion and stuff. So these problems still exist in many, many places. So assertive communication, a style in which individuals clearly, calmly, and firmly, advocate for their values and needs without violating the boundaries of other people. I'll say that again because it's very important. You say it clearly, calmly, and firmly. Advocate for your values and needs without violating the boundaries of others. that is quite the balancing act. Because if we want something, it's kind of like, well, I want that, so that's what I want, and that's how it is. Assertive communication is not about getting what you want. It's working towards a situation where possibly you can get what you want, but then you have to think about the other person, and you have to remain calm and respectful. And yes, it can come across as aggressive to people who can't deal with, having their boundaries, maybe their boundaries way further ahead, and actually they don't respect you. So when you come in to have that conversation, it feels like they're being attacked. So it's very difficult to find the line between these things. Assertive communication, communicators are strong advocates of what is important to them while being very respectful of the boundary of others. Assertive communicators will state needs and wants clearly and respectfully. Use I statements, as our friend said over here, how it makes you feel without blaming the other person. This is very difficult to do when you get angry. It's really hard. Communicate respect for the other person. Listen well without interrupting. Feel in control of themselves, which is a really, really important point. Like you say, if you start feeling powerless and hopeless in situations because you're unable to manage to address the emotions that come up in those feelings of conflict, when someone's being assertive to you, or even aggressive, if you're unable to stand up for yourself and communicate what needs to be said in that moment and stand up for your values, you're going to feel really, really powerless. So someone who can be assertive, they can feel in control of themselves, have good eye contact, speak in a calm and clear tone of voice, have relaxed body posture. So even if it's a really stressful situation, they're able to keep their body posture calm. It keeps the other person calm. They can feel connected to other people. They feel competent and in control. And as I say, it's in control of themselves and a situation possibly, but not in control of another person, because as soon as you start trying to control someone else, that's anger. So it's aggressive to try and control another person. So it's always in control of themselves and doing the best that they can do to contribute towards improving a situation. They're not allowed themselves to be abused or manipulated, and stand up for their values. The impact of assertive communication is to feel connected to others, feel in control of their lives. They're able to mature because they address issues and problems as they arise. It's a very important point, and it's only really someone who's an assertive communicator or deals with problems as they arise are actually able to grow up and mature. They create a respectful environment where others can grow and mature around them. Just think, what kind of person would you want to be around in friends, parents? What qualities that you want in them? Yes, please.
I hate speaking, so...
I understand what that's like.
I wanted to raise what I see as the second point. You've talked about what we can do, but what I'm aware of is you give a good scenario of people responding to what you say, but I've noticed in communication nowadays, others don't listen respectfully. They may interrupt about 2 or 3 words in, and it's not this sort of all daisies and roses. It just isn't. And you can't control what they do. It's just awful. It's really awful. The lack of listening, the lack of interest. Or that if you ask, could you just wait till I finish? They're just waiting, but they're not listening. They're just going, so it can be met with that aggression. I just wondered what
who are these people? Just out of interest, what's the context?
Oh yes, I would say professionally, I've noticed that on Zooms. Like in my case, I'd be talking about medical things, and I'd be listening forever, and then I'll put the little hand up because I'm not assertive enough to enter into that conversation, and I'll just start to talk about something actually about mental health, and the response is no. It's horrible. It's so disempowering.
Forum.
Yeah, it's bad news.
Yeah,
that's what I notice, and family, of course. Yeah. Thank you.
It's a good point, and I think most people have been in that situation where they've been on Skype or Zoom or Teams or whatever, and you sit there and you patiently put your hand up, and like half an hour later, you're like 10 topics later. And sometimes you just have to say something. Hello, excuse me, I am here. I'm here, hello. Is anybody going to listen? Are you going to listen? Or do I just leave the meeting? I don't know. I've had my hand up for half an hour. Are you going to listen to me? Or shall I just go? I mean, is that aggressive or is that assertive? What's that all about? Is it aggressive? I'm just like, I've been sat here for half an hour with my hand up. You've invited to me this meeting. You know. I don't know. It's like, I'm not going to try and get anything out of them. And it's like, I'm just letting you know, I'm going to be leaving the meeting. I've been here for half an hour. I've had a really good go at this. If you want to try and have this meeting again with, you know, I mean, and this is one of the things is like, so this is something that happens like when we have people come into residential rehab, they're coming into this situation. There is tons of rules that they have to follow. So many rules. And like they break rules, there's consequences. They don't like consequences. So you have to make sure that before they're coming into this container, this situation, that they know the expectations and that we have the rules straight. So that once you're in that situation, they know where the boundaries are. Now, you can translate that to a Zoom meeting. Like, it's a meeting, you're coming into a situation, or it could be a relationship or a friendship. You need to know what the expectations are if you're having a meeting, because it sounds like it's really badly managed. It's like, okay, I'm coming to this meeting, but we need to have some rules. So if people are talking, they have to raise their hands. Okay? And if people are going to talk without raising their hands, then it's not going to work. So someone needs to manage that meeting. So it's like, that's actually going to there's a way that it's going to work that's fair, that people are going to be heard.
Can I say something about it?
General, it's so nice if people will just hold that space. It's such a beautiful feeling, isn't it, where you can express and it's received. It's wonderful to have it received.
So maybe you need to have the conversation with whoever's running the meeting. Thank you so much. And they can actually communicate that to everyone in the meeting. Look, guys, you're not being respectful. You need to raise your hand. There's people in this meeting who aren't being heard. Yeah. Well done. I public speaking, something I used to find terribly scary, and sometimes even if I'm still sat in the crowd and I have to get the microphone, I still get the butterflies to try and answer the question. It's scary.
I just want to say something that can be very cultural too, because I have that problem at home.
Yeah.
I'm the one that always talking back to my partner, because I come from Brazil, and in Brazil we all talk at the same time. So, sorry, that's a South American thing. And I find it very hard to control myself. I'm learning. But I have a question about all this communication. Why New Zealanders are so, I don't know if it's scared the word, to do a conversation. They feel like it's a confrontation. What is that about it?
I'm not a New Zealander.
I don't know. But I'm just curious because
answer
sometimes I want to
question.
discuss something.
I don't know the answer to that. I'm not a New Zealander.
And I want to put things in perspective, but then it feels like I am aggressive. But maybe it comes down what you say about boundaries. Maybe I need to listen and...
It comes down to tuning into other people, the way that, you know, it's like, how do you do things? It's like two people are totally different. You need to have a relationship. You need to communicate. If you communicate, you can start to understand each other better. And then you can have a closer relationship and a closer connection. But it's all about that communication. And through that communication, you're going to be able to understand different cultures better. Through listening. Listening's important, because if we don't listen, it's the first step. That's why I spent the first part of this talk talking about the listening. If you don't do the listening, nothing else is going to work. So first listen, and then respond. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi. So when say if you practice assertiveness, you get better at it, and you want to bring that into your relationships, I mean, a lot of people use these other forms of communication. How do you establish the trust? Because, I mean, what it seems like to me is that just in being assertive, you're going to create a lot of problems. And, like, once the trust is lost there, like, you're just being assertive, right? But then they get offended or they get their feelings hurt. You know, that's, like, so common these days. Like, oh, you know, I feel upset that you know what I mean? It's just like, just by being assertive, you're going to upset someone. So how do you how do you move people, you know what I mean? How do you have an assertive conversation?
You don't. That's not the goal. You need to know what your values are. You need to know what's important, and then you stick to your values and what's important. and then you communicate assertively what's trying to be the best person that you can be. If people get offended by that, if they don't have to, don't do it. But sometimes people will get offended by doing what's more important. We all come across decisions in our life where it's like, I need to do that, it's the right thing to do, it's the honest thing to do. Someone's going to suffer because maybe they haven't been dishonest, or they're not ready to face something, but actually this has to happen, because if it doesn't happen, it's worse for everybody in the long run. So then you have to do it. And if they get offended by that, not that you want them to be offended, but sometimes you just have to do those things. And often, if you do those things and you keep making the right choices, actually they're going to come to you when they have a difficult situation, because you're someone that they can respect and look up to, because you have good values and good boundaries, and you can actually hold people together and hold space for many people and do great things. But people who can't face the confrontation, who communicate in ways that are manipulative and disconnecting, no one's going to go to them for help. So in the long run, trust is built over an extremely long period of time, over consecutive demonstrations of you being able to stick to your boundaries, be respectful, be honest, assertive communication when it's needed, and then you're going to be a highly trustworthy person. And then you do one thing wrong and you break all the trust and you've got nothing. So it's all about integrity and sticking to your values and being able to walk through uncomfortable situations over and over again. I'm not saying it's about doing the most scary thing that's like 10 out of 10 scary, but maybe you do 3 out of 10 scary over and over again, and eventually you can do 5 out of 10, and you become a very strong person progressively over time that people can trust. Does that answer that?
Yeah, so you kind of can go through periods of like feeling like your family might alienate you because they think that you're too, brusque or something like that. Like that's just what you have to deal with, right? And you just keep making the...
If it's important to you, I know there's some cultures where actually, like some Asian cultures, where actually being too assertive would be very difficult for you as a part of that culture, because they expect, especially if you're younger, that you will respect the elders, and there will be different situations. So, like, it's cultural. You have to, but at the end of the day, sometimes some things are more important than cultural consideration. Like, some things are super important that you have to do, and in those situations, it's, can I walk through the uncomfortability of not being liked, socially cast out, my friends won't like me, because sometimes there's things that are more important than those things. If you want to, like, it's a quite extreme example maybe, but we're talking about like high level stuff with that. Yeah.
So I'm born in New Zealand, and I think the reason why a lot of Kiwis don't, like, from where I'm from, like, it's culturally as well. And when you grow up in New Zealand, like, you're so conditioned at an early age with just positive feelings, like from primary school up to high school. And then by the time you finish high school, it's like an automatic thing that you're either passive aggressive or you become a people pleaser. Because for me, it's like, I think I was just very conditioned from church, turn the other cheek, like be at service to others. And then you take away all those negative feelings, and you don't know how to be assertive because you weren't, you were taught that assertiveness is kind of negative. So then you become this, like, I think that's why majority of Kiwis, like, they don't like having that confrontational conversation, because it's just the way we're conditioned through religion, through like where we're from, and all of those things. Yeah,
it's kind of ironic, and it's a great example, because I just find it's like Jesus Christ in his teachings, he turned the other cheek and he showed great humility, and then at other times he went and flipped tables in temples and told the Pharisees and the preachers that they were all full of shit, basically, and that they were just deceiving people. And so he had both those qualities. He actually was unbelievably assertive, and his values were, absolutely unbelievable and exemplary. And then at other times he just would submit and would be just go through hell, because that was the right thing to do. So he actually had, depending on his values, he actually was unbelievably assertive and fearless, and he said exactly what needed to be said. He basically was taking on an empire, the Roman Empire, and he would speak out fearlessly against that. And then at other time, he turned the other cheek and would carry the Romans' stuff around, and when they asked him to. So I think that I do think that people have definitely would take parts of Christianity or religion and say, no, you should do that because then they can control you. But actually, I know in the teachings of Jesus Christ, he wasn't about being controlled. He was about doing the will of God above anything and anyone said. Like, there was nothing that anyone said that could control the way he would react. So he was just unbelievably assertive and he wasn't doing anyone's will other than God's will. So I think that's actually something that maybe needs to be explored a little bit more deeply, because I think it's a fantastic example and it's a super interesting example. So I appreciate that, but I understand what you're saying, especially about the positive emotions. If we're trying to feel positive emotions all the time, happiness, you're not going to be assertive, because when you're assertive, you have to feel quite bad sometimes. You have to feel guilty that you've said something to someone that now they're upset. Like you were saying, I've said something, now they're upset, but it needed to be said. So you can't expect to be happy all the time and actually work to long-term good. Short-term happiness is not your friend. Short-term happiness will steal everything from you. It'll steal your happiness, it'll steal your connection, it'll steal your values. You'll end up feeling guilty and ashamed and hopeless. Instant gratification's bad. I'm a drug addict, I promise, I know. You do hard things now so that later's easier. There's a line in the Serenity Prayer. You guys know this prayer? God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And actually it's way longer than that. And in the end of it, it's talking about doing things one day at a time and accepting hardship as a pathway to peace. That line there was so important to me, more than one day at a time, which most people latch onto that, but hardship, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace. Because I used to avoid everything uncomfortable. I just do drugs instead and hide somewhere with my friends at some rave, or just like I wouldn't deal with any responsibility. Drug addicts really struggle with responsibility. They don't want to do hard things now. They want to sniff something or inject something or drink something and feel great. That will steal all of your happiness. That was quite a segue. Where was we? I've probably not got that one. Yeah. Yeah.
I was just curious, it's a little bit off subject, but do you think, like when you're talking about values and things, do you think it's possible for a person to have integrity in some areas of their life and in some other areas none at all?
Yeah. We'll probably just hit our limit of fear in a certain dimension and just go, I can't do that. It's too hard. I'm too scared. I don't want to deal with the consequences of that. So yeah, you can, some people, you can be a good person in one time, and then all of a sudden you do something that was actually, you feel like you've let yourself down and you've suffered and others have suffered because you've done that. So yeah, for sure. It's asking a lot, we're talking about like a really ideal situation here, but we can all strive to be the best version of us that we can be. Yeah. Anything else? Well, okie dokie, so nearly there. So the assertive communication can make communicators behave in a way that says, we are equally entitled to express ourselves respectfully to one another. I am confident about who I am. I speak clearly, honestly, and to the point. I can't control others, but I can control myself. There's that serenity prayer. I am responsible for getting my needs met in a respectful manner. I respect the rights of others. Nobody owes me anything unless we've made a deal. I'm 100% responsible for my own happiness. Their actions and expressions fit with words spoken, firm but polite, clear, no manipulation, respectful and calm. Based on the understanding that all individuals are equal and deserve respect. Body language would be, eye contact would be warm, welcoming, friendly and comfortable. Posture would be relaxed, opening and welcome. Hands would be open and friendly. And obviously doing your best. You start as friendly as you can, and it might come to a certain point where you can't be friendly anymore. You try your best to be friendly, and it might get to a certain point. If someone tried to, offer me drugs or something like that, for me, probably I'm going to immediately go to an extremely firm fuck off. Probably, because if I relapse, it's going to ruin my life. So I'm going to do my best to be, yes, no, thank you, please don't bring that around me, da-da-da-da. If it gets to the point where it's in my face, I'm probably going to be get a little bit more on the aggressive side, because you have to sometimes. Sometimes you have to do that. But you be as nice as you can. Always trying to be as respectful as possible. So one method that we use to as a framework to be assertive is DESC, desk. So describe the situation or unwanted or annoying behaviour of the other person. So I noticed that you're using drugs again. E, express your feelings about the behaviour. This makes me feel vulnerable because I used to be a drug addict. S, specify the behaviours you want to see stopped and those that you want to see performed. So I love you, but I won't be able to spend time with you if you're using drugs again. C, consequences. And this is a positive thing. It's like, if you stop using, we'll be able to spend time together. So that's kind of like, I've been assertive there and I've said what I needed to say. I notice you're on drugs again. Not you guys, I hope. Maybe you are. Not judging, I just can't do them. It ruined my life. I notice you're using drugs again. This makes me feel vulnerable because I used to be an addict. I love you, but I won't be able to spend time with you if you're using them again. If you stop using, we'll be able to hang out. If you don't, we won't. I'm sorry. Does that sound reasonable? Great. Thank you so much. You hear that dry throat. So assertive communication is essential for healthy relationships. Through being assertive, we can become more confident, improve self-esteem, be more self-assured. And about that self-esteem thing, if we're constantly feeling like, I need to say that thing, I need to do that thing, that's important, that's the right thing to do, and then we don't do it over and over again, self-esteem's just going to plummet. We're not going to feel good about ourselves if we're unable to do the things that we need to do in life. Because of that fear, because of that emotion, we need to get used to practicing, to sitting with that uncomfortable emotion. We're going to be more honest with ourselves and with others, empowered to make good choices, more able to say yes and more able to say no when necessary, and we can actually be a real friend to people. So yeah, barriers to this might be anger and frustration, sadness, grief, vulnerability, excitement, overwhelm, stress, fatigue, nervous, fear, unclear expectations, super important. We need to know what the expectations that we have for our loved ones, for our co-workers. If we don't know the expectations of others, we're going to keep crossing their boundaries. And then they're going to get angry, like, why are you angry? But maybe they haven't said, well, actually, when you do this, it really upsets me. So knowing clearly what the boundaries are for your, expressing your own and wanting to understand what other people's boundaries are. Tips for better communication. So yeah, those clear expectations, knowing who you are. If you don't know who you are, you're going to feel insecure. That's why Spirit Festival's a wonderful thing. Actually learning about who you are, something that's been the most important thing in my life that stopped me from feeling insecure, because I was a terribly insecure person for most of my life, is actually understanding that I'm not my body and I'm not my mind. I'm not all them weird thoughts that I have. I have some strange thoughts. Not me. It's the mind. I'm an eternal spiritual being, temporarily in this body. I'm not here for that long. It's a few years. Yes, I got my parents. They gave birth to this body. I'll try and be nice to them. But knowing who you are is extremely important to actually feel secure in yourself. If you identify with this body and the way it looks, it's not going to be a good outcome. There's a million reasons to feel insecure while you're in this body. It's a pretty temporary thing. Practice active listening. Focus on the other speaker without distractions. Be empathetic. Try to understand the other person's perspective. Clarify and summarise. Restate points to confirm understanding. And choose the right moment to deal with things. I'm not very good at this. I'm a bit important. I just kind of can be a bit impulsive with that. Sometimes you got to wait. Sometimes people aren't ready to deal with things. So, boundaries. I feel like we've talked about boundaries quite a little bit. One tip with boundaries is, I took it from a a work by a wonderful spiritual personality called Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and he wrote these prayers called Saranagati, which are 6 principles for surrender, and 2 of them I've found really helpful in my life and really practical. One is to accept all things fundamentally that are good for you, and the other rule is to reject everything that's bad for you. That's great boundaries. If you can, anything that's good for you, you need to say yes. Boundaries are about saying yes, not just no. I need to do that, it's good for me. I don't want to go out tonight. I want to stay at home and do this. No, you need to go do this thing, it's important. Say yes to everything you need to do, and say no to everything that's bad for you. Great rules for life. Make sure that you don't. Anger is a really, another boundary is with anger. If you get angry, try not to react from anger. It will always make things worse. It will always cause discommunication, and it will always cause disconnection as well. Anger makes your heart hard. It makes you feel cold. It's bad. So just, if you feel angry, always deal with that at the right time and in the best, most responsible way. So I'm gonna finish with something here, which is another wonderful personality, Tusta Krishna. He wrote 10 rules for a happy marriage, and I think that these are amazing and something that can be adopted and embraced by anyone trying to have a relationship in any form or manner, whether it's a friendship, a marriage, whatever it is. They're just amazing. So rule number 1 is to show respect. Not that easy. Rule number 2 is to be tolerant. A tree's a really great example that's used by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He said that we should be more tolerant than a tree. And he says that trees, they'll pretty much put up with anything. They give shelter, they offer fruit, they'll deal with the rain, they'll deal with the sun, they'll put up with anything. And I don't know if that sounds like a contradiction to being assertive, but we should absolutely be as tolerant as possible. But it doesn't mean that we can't be assertive at the same time as doing that, because we're not always going to get our own way. So we can be assertive, but at the same time we need to be extremely tolerant, because we can't control other people, places or things around us. We need to be supportive. I find that quite hard sometimes. I try my best and then have a moment of getting a bit grumpy or whatever, and it's quite easy to become unsupportive. So being supportive, be understanding, seek understanding. This one's interesting, and it's talking about spiritual perfection. So striving for spiritual perfection for myself. So aiming for the best that I can be, understanding who I am, developing my relationship with God. But don't expect perfection from the other person. It's very important. We can aim for that for ourselves. We can't control other people. We can hope. We can be supportive and respectful and create an environment where they can also choose to try and strive for perfection spiritually for themselves. But we can't expect it from them. Be encouraging. Be slow to judge. Pretty hard. My personal favourite, because it's very, very difficult and quite amusing, and also amazing, and also seems probably a bit contradictory to some things that we've been talking about. But if you can master this one, presuming that the other person isn't a complete narcissist and selfish person, things can be so much wonderfully better. Apologise when you are wrong, even if the other person is more wrong. Have fun with that one. If you can do that, it just because problems just become caused by nothing sometimes, and you can hold on to those things. But if you can actually master that, you can move on and move past it. Because quite often people will go, and one of the funny things about it, if you apologise and don't hold that wall of anger up, they just go like, I'm just all angry by myself here. I feel like a bit of a dick. All right. Yeah, sorry as well. All right. And then you let it go. Because if someone has anyone had the experience of being forgiven for something that they really felt like they never deserved to be forgiven for? It's a pretty rough experience. It's like amazing, and also then all the guilt floods in, and it's like, wow, they forgave me. Even if like maybe someone did something really bad to you and you got revenge or something, and then they forgive you, and it's like, oh, I don't feel that cool anymore. I feel pretty bad about that. Maybe I need to change. Maybe I need to seek forgiveness as well for the things that I contributed to that. Amazing thing that can actually make relationships dramatically better, presuming the other person's reasonable. Be forgiving. Accept responsibility for your own misery. It's really hard. Sometimes we're in a relationship. It's like called codependency. You heard of that stuff? We actually, it's where codependency is where your own happiness is attached to the way someone feels about you. That means that you're completely under the control of someone else. Just to put that in perspective, if you're in a relationship and to be happy, you need your partner to be approving of you, or liking you, or happy with you. They control you with their emotions. So to be independent of that is I'm responsible for my own happiness, and I'm just going to do my best to support this person and do all these things, but I'm not going to have my happiness dependent on that. Probably a big subject, but also a lot to think about. Above all, be humble and compassionate. And because he's a spiritual teacher, he talks about putting his spiritual teacher and God at the centre of his life. And the importance of that is not putting your relationship, especially if it could be a friendship or it could be a romantic relationship, if you put the two of you at the centre of the universe, that's a recipe for disaster, because it's like, I'm relying on you for all of my happiness. And this is it. I need you to be happy. I need you. I'm dependent on you. It puts you in a very vulnerable situation. It also makes everything just about you and the relationship, and it's just super intense. I've done it before, and I'm sure that everyone's had an experience of doing that. It becomes so intense. Find something bigger than that and become a part of it. Serve something as a team bigger than that, and you can be very happy doing that. So I think, God, I really went for it with these slides. It rants on and on. All right, I'm going to knock it on the head there. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for hanging in there and putting up with me. If anyone has any questions, I'll be very welcome to answer them. I'm not sure what time this was meant to finish, and I have a habit of going way over time. Oh, before 4. I've got heaps of time. Look at me go. If anyone wants to I haven't put anything on there for a little while, but if anyone wants to find anything that I do through Break the Chain, you can go to breakthechain.net. Yeah. Has anyone got any questions? We've kind of been doing the questions for... Yeah.
How would you go about repairing a relationship if you've reflected and realized you've adopted some aggressive or passive-aggressive communication techniques, and you've hurt the other person and driven them away a bit?
I would rephrase it to say, what can I do to give the best chance of repairing a relationship, because you can't control it, and just approaching it with that mentality. I would think deeply about the other person, and you already have, and said that you've thought about them and realised some of these things. All you can do is apologise. Do your best. If it's going to make things way worse, maybe don't. But if you think that that it can be received well and that it's not going to be more damaging for the other person, do your best. Have the humility to go in there and look, not try and look like you did things right, and be prepared that when they agree with you that you've done bad things, that you don't get defensive and start bringing up things that they did.
Yeah.
That's the main thing, because that's very hard not to do. Because sometimes you go in for an apology and they go, yeah, you're right, and you did this and this and this, and they go, yeah, but you did that. To just sit there and you have to kind of just take it.
So could a bit of could a bit of time before apologizing also be useful? Like, not needing to say sorry, like, today? Or...
Was it yesterday? I don't know. It's every situation is different. You need to feel it out. Go inwards. Maybe you can be reflective, pray about this, do your best. And like at the end of the day, it's forgiveness is in their court, but you can always apologise. Forgiveness is a wonderful thing because it's the greatest gift because it's usually not deserved. So people have the opportunity. You put the ball in their court, apologise, and then it's up to them if they want to grant that wonderful gift. Just do your best. Thank you for your question. Yeah.
Listen to the show and hit subscribe to free yourself from the shackles of the mind. And if you find some benefit, please share it with a friend and let's make the world a better place together.